Please like and subscribe. The only sound in the room was the soft, fragile cry of 3-month-old Devan. Chad paced the floor, his arms cradling his son tightly. The note on the table still trembled in his hand. I'm sorry. I can't do this. I'm too young to be a mother. I need my freedom. It was signed in Lucea's unmistakable handwriting. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the occasional rumble of distant traffic. Chad glanced around at the scattered baby items, half-folded laundry, an open formula container, the unused second bottle in the sink. He felt the weight of his new reality slam into him. He looked into Devan's eyes, so wide, so trusting, and something within him shifted. It's just you and me now, little guy, he murmured. His voice cracked, but his grip tightened. That night, he held Devan until morning, whispering over and over, "You'll never be alone. Not as long as I'm alive." Chad's tiny one-bedroom apartment barely held the essentials. A crib in the corner, a second-hand couch, a broken coffee table. But it was theirs. Every morning, Chad rose before the sun, preparing bottles and lunches before heading to his job at the local auto shop. Every night, he came home to late-night feedings, diaper changes, and lullabies. Exhaustion became his constant companion, but it couldn't dim the light in Devan's smile. Each milestone, first tooth, first laugh, first word, was fuel for Chad's weary soul. Neighbors gossiped. A single dad? So young? But Chad didn't care. He wasn't raising his son for praise. He was raising him to know he was loved. Love didn't need applause, it needed presence. And Chad's tiny one-bedroom apartment barely held the essentials. A crib in the corner, a second-hand couch, a broken coffee table. But it was theirs. Every morning, Chad rose before the sun, preparing bottles and lunches before heading to his job at the local auto shop. Every night, he came home to late-night feedings, diaper changes, and lullabies. Exhaustion became his constant companion, but it couldn't dim the light in Devan's smile. Each milestone, first tooth, first laugh, first word, was fuel for Chad's weary soul. Neighbors gossiped. A single dad? So young? But Chad didn't care. He wasn't raising his son for praise. He was raising him to know he was loved. Love didn't need applause, it needed presence. And Chad was there, every single moment. The day Devan took his first steps, Chad nearly dropped his phone trying to record it. "That's my boy," he laughed, arms outstretched as Devan wobbled toward him. That night, they celebrated with homemade pancakes and a victory dance in the living room. But with growth came questions. One night, as Chad tucked him in, Devan asked softly, "Where's my mommy?" Chad's heart twisted. "She had to go away," he replied gently. "But I'm here, and I'll always be." It wasn't the whole truth, but it was all Devan needed. At least for now, Chad promised himself he'd answer fully when the time was right. Because their bond wasn't built on pretending, it was built on truth, even when it hurt. Chad couldn't sleep the night before Devan's first day of school. He packed his son's lunch 3 times, triple-checking every detail. As Devan bounded toward his classroom with a superhero backpack and fearless smile, Chad stayed rooted outside the door longer than the other parents. That evening, Devan gushed about his day, his teacher, his art project, his new friend Marcus. Chad smiled through the fatigue. That excitement, that joy, it made everything worth it. Later, after Devan had fallen asleep, Chad sat on the edge of his bed, whispering, "You're going to do big things, kid. I just know it." Money was always tight. Chad picked up extra jobs fixing neighbors' cars on weekends and delivering food at night. One day, Devan asked, "Why don't we have a house like Marcus?" Chad crouched beside him, brushing his son's cheek. "Because we have something even better. We have each other." Later that night, Chad painted stars on Devan's wall, turning his room into a galaxy of dreams. "You're my little explorer," he said. Devan grinned. "And you're my hero." That one sentence gave Chad the strength to push through another 12-hour. It started with rain, then thunder, then wind so fierce it shook the windows. Chad lit a candle as the power flickered out, pulling Devan into his arms. "What if the storm doesn't stop?" Devan whispered. "It will," Chad said. "And we'll be fine." But he wasn't so sure. The garage he worked weekends at had just closed. Bills had piled up, and an eviction notice had arrived that morning. He hadn't told Devan. How could he? He stared into the candle's glow, trying to stay calm as the wind howled outside. His phone buzzed. Another overdue notice. The next morning, the streets were flooded and branches littered the ground. But Chad didn't stop. He knocked on doors, offered help, fixed fences, cleared debris. By nightfall, his hands were raw, his back ached, but he had just enough for rent. Devan threw his arms around him. "We're safe, Daddy." Chad smiled through tears. "Always, buddy, always." Chad wasn't prepared for the envelope. No return address. But the handwriting was familiar, Lucea. He opened it with shaking hands. Asterisk. "Chad, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want to see him. Once. I've changed. Please consider it." Asterisk. The letter slipped from his grasp. His chest burned. After all these years, she wanted to come back? To what? Peek into the life she abandoned. That night, Chad stood in the doorway of Devan's room, watching him sleep. He thought of the pain Lucea's return could cause. But he also thought of Devan's future. Would he hate Chad for hiding this? At breakfast, Chad was quiet. "You okay, Daddy?" Devan asked. "Yeah, kiddo. Just thinking." He hid the letter in his drawer. For now. But the past had returned, and Chad knew it was only a matter of time before Devan would ask the one question that could change. The sun shone bright, but inside Chad's chest, a storm brewed. For days, the letter haunted him. Every glance at Devan brought a question. Did he deserve to meet the mother who left? Chad finally told his closest friend, Miguel. "You think I should let her see him?" Miguel leaned back. "You've raised a good kid, Chad. Maybe he deserves the truth, even if it hurts." That night, Chad sat on Devan's bed, heart pounding. "There's something you need to know," he began. "About your mom." Devan's eyes widened. "You know her?" Chad nodded slowly. "She wrote me. She wants to meet you." The silence stretched. Devan's voice was barely a whisper. "Why did she leave?" Chad's throat tightened. "She wasn't ready. But that wasn't your fault. Do you think I should see her?" Chad hesitated. "That's your choice. I'll be by your side, no matter what." Devan stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "Okay, I want to meet her. Just once." Chad exhaled. "All right, we'll do it together." They met at a quiet park, under an old oak tree. Chad held Devan's hand tightly as they approached a woman sitting nervously on a bench. She stood as they drew near, her eyes glossy with emotion. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm Lucea." Devan studied her. "You're my mom?" She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Yes. I'm so sorry." The moment was still, heavy with unspoken pain. Chad stepped back slightly, giving them space. "I didn't know if I'd ever get to see you," Lucea said. "But I've thought about you every single day." Devan didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Why did you leave?" She clasped her hands. "I was scared. Selfish. I wanted freedom, not responsibility. And I regret it every single day." Devan's brow furrowed. "Do you love me now?" "With all my heart," she choked. He looked at her, then at Chad. "I don't know how to feel." Chad walked over and placed a hand on Devan's shoulder. "You don't have to figure it out today." Lucea smiled sadly. "I just want a chance. Even just a small one." Devan looked back at her. "Maybe we can start with lunch?" A small smile broke across Lucea's face. "I'd like that." Chad felt a strange mix of relief and ache. The past was still there, but maybe, just maybe, the future had room for healing. Lunch was quiet at first. Devan picked at his fries while Lucea tried to fill the silence with stories of her travels and work. Chad kept a watchful eye, sensing the emotional weight hanging between them. "Why didn't you come back sooner?" Devan finally asked. Lucea sighed. "I was ashamed. I didn't think I had the right. And I didn't know if you'd want me." Devan stared at his plate. "I needed a mom." Tears welled in Lucea's eyes. "I know, baby. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there." Chad's fists clenched under the table, the pain of years resurfacing. He had picked up every broken piece, held it all together, and now she wanted a place in their lives? Later, at home, Devan was quiet. Chad sat beside him. "It's okay to be confused," he said. Devan leaned into him. "I still love you more, Dad." Chad kissed his forehead. "I love you too. No one could ever change that." Lucea sat across from Chad, wringing her hands nervously. Devan played in the yard, unaware of the storm inside. "I never stopped thinking about him," Lucea whispered. "I was young and selfish, but I've grown. I want to be part of his life." Chad's jaw clenched, the weight of years pressing on his chest. "You walked away when he needed you most. I raised him alone, through sleepless nights and scraped knees. You don't just walk back in." "I know," she replied, tears streaming. "But I'm not here to take your place. I just want to know my son." Devan wandered back inside, pausing at the doorway. What's going on? He asked. Chad and Lucea turned. Come sit, son, Chad said softly. Lucea looked at him, voice trembling. Devan, I'm your mother. I made a mistake when I left, and I'm so sorry. Devan's eyes widened, then lowered. You're the lady from the park, he whispered. Chad nodded slowly. She wants to be part of your life now, but only if you're ready. Silence filled the room. Finally, Devan spoke. I don't know if I'm ready. But I'll try. Weeks turned into months, and Lucea began showing up, softly, respectfully. She attended Devan's soccer games, brought him books, and stayed for short chats. Chad remained protective but allowed space. One day, Devan invited her to sit with them at dinner. Awkward at first, the evening soon turned warm. Laughter found its way in, loosening the past's tight grip. Later that night, Chad sat on the porch, Lucea joining him. Thank you, she said. I'm not doing it for you, Chad replied. I'm doing it for him. She nodded, understanding. Still, thank you. In the weeks that followed, Devan asked questions about the night he was born, her favorite songs, why she left. Lucea answered honestly, never once excusing herself. It was painful but cleansing. One evening, after another long talk, Devan looked at her. I don't hate you anymore. Tears filled her eyes. That means more than you know. With time, a new routine emerged. They celebrated Devan's birthday together for the first time. He received 2 cakes, one from Chad, one from Lucea, and they all laughed when he smeared frosting on both. They visited the zoo, took a weekend trip to the mountains, and even shared a dance at a school event. The bond between Chad and Lucea remained complicated, but civil. They were no longer at odds, they were partners, in a way, both striving for Devan's happiness. One evening, Chad pulled out a photo album, filled with Devan's milestones, his first steps, his first word, his first soccer goal. Lucea cried quietly as she turned each page. I missed so much, she whispered. But you're here now, Chad said. And that counts. Devan curled between them on the couch, his laughter the soundtrack to their healing. They weren't a perfect family. But they were real, and for the first time, that felt. Years passed, and the rhythms of life continued to unfold. Devan grew into a thoughtful, kind teenager, a blend of his father's steadiness and his mother's emerging presence. He excelled in school, played soccer, and even volunteered at the community center. Through it all, Chad stood proud, watching his son bloom. Lucea remained a steady figure in Devan's life. Though she could never rewrite the past, she honored it by showing up, truly and fully. The three of them, once fractured, had found a way to coexist in harmony. One summer evening, Devan stood on a small stage at his middle school graduation. His speech silenced the room. My story isn't perfect. I was raised by a hero who never gave up. And I reconnected with someone who found the courage to return. I'm thankful for both. Everything I am, I owe to love that never left and love that came back. Tears filled Chad's eyes. Lucea's hands trembled. After the ceremony, Devan ran into their arms. We did it, he said. No, Chad whispered, kissing his son's forehead. You did. As the stars emerged in the summer sky, they walked home together, father, mother, and son, side by side. Their journey had been messy, painful, and unpredictable. But through every twist, love endured. And in the end, that love had carried them home.